It's a CEO bench, so usually people want to assume that all CEOs are overlearned and stuff like that. So I will change the script this time around. I consider myself a certified hustler.
If I'm looking to know who you are you Ugandan? If yes, what are the values that define you as Ugandan?
That's the easiest question, I think, to answer. I am a typical Lao man from Erute North, in a place called Ogur, and where I will be laid to rest is in a village called Agweng. So if you go there and you just say Otoa Tony, they won't really know me because my father is also Otoa Tony. You have to ask for Junior, and when you're asking, you have to ask with an accent. Junior Tikwene, where is Junior? And they will identify me. But I'm typically Ugandan, only Ugandan, from Lira. I pride myself from being from Lira. Earlier on, I was joking and saying I'm the coolest Lango south of Karuma. When you cross Karuma, there are so many. But when you're down in the south after Karuma...
Wow. Well, now that you know Tony Otoa is Ugandan, and of course, what are the values that define you as a Ugandan?
I think it's the love for country, love for nation. You know, truth be told, the country is in a lot of... It's a crisis. Leadership crisis, economic crisis, social crisis. There's so many mismatching areas. But at the end of the day, it's home. You know, you cannot run and abandon your home because of the issues in your home. I think that then creates an opportunity for you to do something to change what's happening and what you see as a crisis. So in terms of what I see as a value, or what I take out of that for me, I think is just the love for country, the need to serve country the best way I can. And I mean, I can't say I can change everything, but the little I can do to create a difference, I think is more meaningful.
Wow. Mr. Tony Otoa, growing up, what did you want to be in life? And what was the journey like for Mr. Otoa?
Yeah, you know, my father is crazy. My father would call us and he would show me the compass. The idea was supposed to be a pilot. You know, the planes would fly over our house and my father would be like, yeah, you're going to be a pilot. But of course, as you grow, you realize that you have so many things that really define you. I was never a sportsman. So I enjoyed a lot of debate and, you know, a lot of indoor activities. And that is, I think, what really drove me into some of the things that I do up to today. Public speaking, the love for debates and really a lot of intellectual discourse and all this stuff. But besides that, I think it's also the fact that I won't lie. I did not know what I wanted to be.
Welcome back to the Creative Industry Talk. My name is Eddie Okela, and in the studio is Lucille Fontaine from the French Embassy in Kampala, and of course Faisal from Baimba, and Stella ATAL in Paris. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the program. And creativity, Lucille, starts from thinking. Everyone in this world is born with a measure of creativity in them. We go to school to just enhance it, to make it better. And before a child is taken to school, they're very creative. They're drawing things everywhere. They're putting things everywhere. They speak language we don't understand until they learn how a bad language, and then we start confusing them. But we take them to school and they become very creative. That means that everyone born in this world is a creative mind. It also means that we have a culture behind the things we do. We want to start from you, particularly, to give us the context. Growing up as a child, were you creative? If yes, how creative were you?
No, I think I was more intellectual than creative, actually. I was more into analysis than into creativity.
Okay.
Yeah, I think there are different minds, actually. I think there are many ways of being creative. It's not just about drawing things. It's also about like the way of thinking you have. So yeah, I think it's a large definition we can make of creativity.
Okay. Faisal, growing up, were you a creative person? Lucille said you have to think about it and write, which means the kids, when we were young, were thinking and putting whatever we're thinking together. Were you creative when you were young?
I don't think so. I mean, I wasn't really, I don't know, I mean, I never thought that I was creative. I was just growing up and messing up everything. I think my parents were really mad at me all the time because I felt like destroying stuff was the best way possible. Maybe I was taking attention, so that was my level of creativity. But on a serious note, I think I've been, you know, since I've been in art for a long time, and since I had my first production, stage production, when I was 6 years old. Okay. So I grew up in theater. My parents were philanthropists, so they were supporting. We had these community theater groups, so I was acting and dancing and performing in that. So from a very young age, I was in the arts, and I was very happy about it till I grew up and I got tired. And I'm like, I think I've had enough. Then I wanted to do totally different things. Yeah.
Wow. Stella ATAL in Paris, were you creative when you were young? We already know you're a fashion designer and you're already teaching art in school. Were you creative when you were young? Let's dive in from there. Stella in Paris.
Yes, hello everyone. Yes, I was coming from a creative family. There was no doubt that I was going to be part of them. And I grew up in a family of 6, and my big brothers were artists. So I grew up in their studios. I could see them do the work, and it fascinated me. I really wanted to be like them, and they really gave me the time. They taught me how to paint, how to do portraits. And then my teacher, actually she just retired. She was a headmistress for the last 40 years. And I used to go with her to school before I started school, and I could see what the children were doing. So all that encouraged me, and I thought, me too, I can do what the rest can do, no matter how old I was that time. But I started painting when I was 5, real painting, and doing many activities that I could see other children bigger in school were doing. No matter how old I was that time, but I started painting.
Thank you very much. And ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the show. We have a short time to get there, but a long time to go. And I want to start from Lucille. You are a cultural attaché in the French embassy here in Kampala. And would you take us through what your role is as a cultural attaché? We always hear this. We know military attaché, we know what they do, but we don't know what cultural and educational and linguistic, entail. Would you take us through in a snapshot?
Yeah, I think it's normal if you don't really know what we do, because we're not supposed to be on the stage, right? We're supposed to be behind.
Yes.
So yeah, our role is to make connections between the country where we are and France. So the purpose is to just create links, to make artists work together, to allow collaborations. Then we have many partners. They could be French, they could be Ugandan in this case. So, for example, we work a lot with Alliance Française, which is actually in the streets. Yeah. We work a lot with École Française, and then we work with universities, public universities in Uganda, and with artists. For example, we work with Nige Nige, we work with the National Museum, National Theatre, and so our role is just to allow collaborations and try to create projects between France and these partners.
Okay. And Faisal, what is your understanding of Lucille's role as artistic director at Baimba?
I mean, I'm also like a culture attaché. I mean, I understand because, for a long time, the French have been very strong in supporting cultural collaborations around the continent, more especially in the Francophone countries, not so much in the Anglophone countries, but that's understandable. I think they just wanted to give the Brits the space to do their work. So that means that, you know, them being here, especially in Uganda, in an Anglophone country for so long, one of the significant part of the French contribution to Ugandan art was the beginning of the Alliance Française, which has been there. And when it used to be housed at the National Theatre, so many artists really benefited from it. They really cultivated the culture of collaborations, they cultivated the culture of performance. They were very supportive of artists traveling and exchanging. And of course, sometimes it, depending on, we're talking with Lucille here, depending on who is there as a director, sometimes you know, it might be law, it might be visual arts, might be fashion, might be film or music. So everyone who comes in as a director, they have their niche, and they have been doing that very well. I'm not so familiar about their French language because I don't speak it. But I think I also understand that there are many people in Uganda who are learning French and they're very excited about it, and you know, so it's a good thing. And even us as Bayimba, we've collaborated with the French so many times. We are also collaborating now from a different perspective with the FD and stuff like that. So there's a lot of possibilities that have been, you know, explored in collaboration with Bayimba and the French Embassy and the Alliance. Yeah. Okay, we would like to dive into France. Paris, Stella ATAL, what is your understanding of Lucille's role at the embassy, and how are you collaborating with them?
For me, I think Lucille's role is to bring a connection or to promote the two cultures in terms of education, culturally, and culture means as well as economic development between Uganda and France. And I think her role in Uganda is to do more of exchange programs between the creatives in France and in the creatives in Uganda. Like she has said, she's working with a lot of different people in different sectors. And for me, it's been years I've been actually working with the French embassy since 2008, 2007. Even before that, we had Alliance Française, we had the Labat festivals. There is a lot that we've been doing with Alliance Française. And then with the embassies, they always have programs that they are doing with the communities. The best way to promote a cultural exchange with the local communities. Because yes, we find there is a lot that can be done with the information we get in school. But then remember, this information, you can get it online, on the internet, in book. But then what is more important is to do these cultural exchanges, even if it's education. They want French students to come to Uganda and interact physically with the local communities, schools in the local communities. And when we have same people come to France, yes, they've read about France, education, culture, but then it's different when someone is on ground and they can see exactly the culture that is on ground.
Much, Stella, for that one recap of what your understanding and collaboration with the French embassy is as far as cultural and creativity is concerned. Now we want to dive to our first question before we go for a break, and I want to go back to Lucille. Now that we understand your work very well, and we can now start to yes, and have some very great discussion around it. Lucille, why is international cultural exchange and collaboration critical in the contemporary world today?
Because I think we've done with just like individuals working alone in their own room, you know. I think this image of the artist is now done. And we know now that it's really fruitful to work together and to have these kind of collaborations between countries, between cultures. So I think that now it's really important to allow artists to just work together, to have some projects in common, and to be able to take some parts of different ways of thinking the world, of thinking the links between the cultures.
bring in artists from outside for two reasons. One, we wanted them to show the Ugandan artists where they are in terms of development, artistic development. And two, we wanted them also to collaborate with the Ugandan artists. And that really helped some of the Ugandan artists to learn. They say like, okay, I'm a musician, I've been here. And then you find an artist like Didi Awadi, or you find someone like Aquanara from Nigeria, or someone like Belista from South Africa, or Belita, sorry. When she comes here and she spends a week in studio with Jemima or with Kaz Kasozi, the artists they are working with are learning something from them, and as well as they are learning something, and then after that they have created an album or an EP. So we've really worked like this for a long time. Some of the most things that I've really been very proud of in terms of collaborations are some of the new art forms that we've managed to introduce into the market, like street theater. And when we started doing street theater in 2010, most of the people we worked with, they were like, yeah, I'm a street theater artist. And then I put them in a residence for 6 months, and they realized actually they were not doing street theater. So they learned a lot, and we had a good year of street theater production that was touring. We've done, headphone disco collaborations. I think we were the first ones to bring headphone disco here in 2009 from Glasgow. We brought in video mapping with a French Matthew from Paris, and it was really the most amazing. So we did an audience interaction with the walls of the National Theatre during the festival. It was one of the most amazing exchange and collaboration. So we've really, through collaboration and exchanges, we've managed to champion so many new art forms here in Uganda, and also introduced new acts of work to artists here. Yeah.
Wow. We're going to dive to Stella ATAL before we come back to Lucille. Lucille, I know what Faisal just said makes you feel good. Does it make you feel like you are, I'm working? My collaboration with these guys are working from what Faisal just said?
No, I don't think I feel pride. I think it's more about happiness of knowing that so many projects are going well.
Okay, very good. Stella ATAL in France, why do you think that international cultural exchange and collaboration is quite key in this contemporary world we're in right now? The fact that you are now based in France and teaching art in France.
No, I don't think I feel
it helps you know the world beyond your own world. And I've seen so many, there are many, like I could talk about the French embassy, the projects they're doing in Uganda with a Campus France, which is educational programs where they bring people, like creatives from Uganda to France. And last year, end of last year, they brought a group of journalists. It's very important that journalists should have such a cultural diversity of information, not only in the countries where they live, but then if you want to talk about France, it's good that you go to that place, understand their values, their norms, their cultures, so that when you come to write about it, you know exactly what you're writing. And then I've had a collaboration. It's an education exchange for fashion designers, where we bring fashion designers from one of the schools in France to Uganda to interact with the local school, like for a period of 2 weeks. And then during that week, the French students they're teaching the way the education system is, fashion is in France, and then also they're learning from the Ugandan ones how things are done in Uganda. So at the end of the day, the Ugandan ones have learned a little, much as they've not been able to come to France, but then the fact that we've been able to bring these children who have interacted with them, for them they've learned something from them. And also the French students have learned something from the Ugandan students. And when they go back home, they are going to bring out the news. They are going to spread that news about fashion in Uganda, what they saw in Uganda. And for me, I think that's the best way we can promote our cultures. Because for me, every time you travel, before you even people pick you at the airport, They're going to ask you, what did you see? What did you eat? What do people speak? What is this? So it is that story of interaction that is really needed and what we are really trying to do.
Thank you very much, Stella, for that interaction right there. And we're going to take a break. Stella ATAL in Paris, Faisal KIWEWA here in Kampala, and Lucille here in Kampala. We'll be right back after this. We want to hear from you. Please send us your kisses and disses up there. Post them, ask questions. She's here to answer them. Faisal is here to answer them. And Stella ATAL is here to dig deeper into it as well. We're going to take a break, and when we come back, the Creative Industry Talk will continue with our next question on how important, but not only how important, how can we contribute to making these collaborations even much better. Stay right there, we'll be right back after the break.
It's a CEO bench, so usually people want to assume that all CEOs are overlearned and stuff like that. So I will change the script this time around. I consider myself a certified hustler.
If I'm looking to know who you are you Ugandan? If yes, what are the values that define you as Ugandan?
That's the easiest question, I think, to answer. I am a typical Lao man from a Rute North, in a place called Ogur, and where I will be laid to rest is in a village called Agweng. So if you go there and you just say Otoa Tony, they won't really know me because my father is also Otoa Tony. You have to ask for Junior, and when you're asking, you have to ask with an accent. Junior Tikwene, where is Junior? And they will identify me. But I'm typically Ugandan, only Ugandan, from Lira. I pride myself from being from Lira. Earlier on, I was joking and saying I'm the coolest Lago south of Karuma. When you cross Karuma, there are so many. But when you're down the south after Karuma, I think I'm number one.
Wow. Well, now that you know Tonyo Toa is Ugandan, and of course, what are the values that define you as a Ugandan?
I think it's the love for country, love for nation. You know, truth be told, the country is in a lot of, it's a crisis. Leadership crisis, economic crisis, social crisis. There's so many mismatching areas. But at the end of the day, it's home. You know, you cannot run and abandon your home because of the issues in your home. I think that then creates an opportunity for you to do something to change what's happening and what you see as a crisis. So in terms of what I see as a value, or what I take out of that for me, I think is just the love for country, the need to serve country the best way I can. And I mean, I can't say I can change everything, but the little I can do to create a difference, I think is more meaningful.
Wow. Mr. Tonyo Toa, growing up, what did you want to be in life? And what was the journey like for Mr. Toa?
Yeah, you know, my father is crazy. My father would call us and he would show me the compass. The idea was supposed to be a pilot. You know, the planes would fly over our house, and my father would be like, yeah, you're going to be a pilot. But of course, as you grow, you realize that you have so many things that really define you. I was never a sportsman. So I enjoyed a lot of debate and, you know, a lot of indoor activities. And that is, I think, what really drove me into some of the things that I do up to today. Public speaking, the love for debates and really a lot of intellectual discourse and all this stuff. But besides that, I think it's also the fact that I won't lie. I did not know what I wanted to be.
It's a creative industry talk. My name is Eddie Okela. On this Tuesday morning or afternoon or night, depending on which part of the world you are watching from, I'd like to give a shout out to all the people in the US, in France, in Germany, and the guys in Australia. We have some people in Sweden who are very happily, following, and of course Anthony Ndawula all the way in the United States of America, up at this hour of the day watching the show. Thank you very much. I'd like to reach out to my sister from another mother, Professor Penina Chayo from Washington University. Greetings to you from Kampala and welcome to the Creative Industry Talk. Lucille, welcome back to the program. And Faisal, welcome back. Stella, ATAL in France, welcome back to the program. Lucille, I want to take you to my next question, which is what value does international cultural exchange and collaboration, contribute to the artistic and creative industry in the world? Let's start from there.
Oh, what a huge question. Yeah, it's complicated. I think it depends on the artist. I think like everyone needs maybe different approaches. So maybe for some artists it's really important for their creativity to meet people, to understand better how culture works in the world. I think, for example, the status of the artist is quite different in France and in Uganda. So I think this kind of collaboration, for example, residencies, can really allow artists to understand better the different ways artists can do their profession. So, for example, we have some projects of residencies between France and Uganda. Now it's a bit complicated with COVID, of course, because it's complicated to travel. But we organize some online residencies. For example, we had a project with Villa Gilet, which is a cultural place in France, near Lyon. And we organized a project with videos to film people in the field of literature in Uganda. And I think, well, it's not very a huge satisfaction, let's say, because I really would prefer them to go to France, to meet artists there, and to understand better how literature works, let's say, in France. But still, I think it's interesting just to have connections between people. And it allows, apart from this better understanding of the situation and the status, I think it also allows maybe books or projects to have, I think it's really important for this project to be spread, let's say, and to allow these people to enrich their work and the way of being artists.
Okay. Lucille, the French people are very strong when it comes to promoting their culture. Every country you go to, you make sure your culture is very strong. What is the motivation behind this? Why do you think it's important for your culture to be understood every country you go to?
I don't know, maybe just because people love wine and cheese, maybe just about us. Yeah, no, I think it's because it's a culture that people like. I think we have so many cliches attached to France, like the Tour Eiffel, and yes, the bread, the cheese, the wine. I think people know very well these symbols, so for them it's really easy to just go to it and to understand, this culture because it's known everywhere. For me, it's more that it's interesting to, once again, to meet people and I think you can't meet people properly if you don't know your own culture, So, of course, I rap with my cliches, with wine, cheese, bread, etc. because this is the best way to know people and to share things. If you don't have these symbols, if you don't have these cliches, then it's a bit more complicated because you don't know how to connect with people. For example, in France, Uganda is not that well known for the moment. And then when you meet Ugandan people, then it's complicated to connect with them because you don't know what to ask, you don't know where the country is situated. So I think it's important to understand your culture and to arrive to people with your own cliches to connect to them.
Wow. Faisal and Stella ATAL, your work is cut out. I probably want today, after this show, I'm going to make sure wine and cheese and bread meet malakwang and ichok and mogo from the north. I don't know what you're going to give, but we're going to have to make sure these cultures interact. Faisal, you've had my question to Lucille. What value does the international cultural exchange, for example, contribute to the artistic industry from where you sit? You've heard what Lucille said, fantastic stuff going on there. And now I think I understand why there is Alliance Francaise almost in every country, that there is a French embassy or there is a French, international office in, because I like what you said, is so that you can communicate with people, but also learned that many people don't know much about Uganda in France, and I think true because we're in the eastern part of the country, and they were more into the western part of, or the central part of Africa. Yes, Faisal,
I think, of course, many people know France, but also many people don't know where it is.
Yes.
They know the country. And for Uganda also, I think we also have our staff. Certain things you need to know.
Yes.
Like, if you're from Uganda, you gossip. Then you transfer that culture, take it away, share it with others. I think it's a challenge, but it all comes down to, national branding. I think one of the biggest setbacks we've faced as Ugandans, and that's why many people know about us, is because of their mean atrocities, the civil war of Kony. I think Uganda made headlines during this Kony war. There was an organization that did a video that was really trending, and everywhere you went to, in Washington D.C., you found stickers of Uganda and the Kony, publishing it. But definitely it's important, and it's a strategy, as we've been talking over, during our episodes in the previous ones. The challenge is that Uganda is not known culturally because we haven't managed to define what can we export. We are we have so many cultures, we have so many cultural tribes and languages, and I think it has been difficult. Like for France, everyone speaks French. It might be a different tone or a different accent, but they all speak French. They understand each other. Isn't that right?
Yeah.
So it is easy for someone to represent. It doesn't matter whether you're coming from the north of France or the south of France or the east or the west. You're all gonna be speaking French and exporting it. Here, it's difficult. Eddie, when you try to speak Uganda, I close my eyes and I'm like, oh my gosh, what is he saying? So it's difficult for you. What are you gonna take out there? If you're given an opportunity to go to France, what language are you going to speak?
I'll take a Le Blanc.
I see. So it's also this issue that we are facing, that we don't have a unifying language, even though Luganda is more spoken, but it's not accepted as a national language, so we cannot export that. We don't have a unifying culture. That we eat cheese or we eat marakwang, we all have different foods, so everyone will take whatever, and it's confusing depending on who you meet. So that's where I think we are, and I think what would have really helped us to kind of brand ourselves would have been maybe a focus on the creative productions, creative content that would have defined Uganda. As you can see, we made one film or two films, like Last King of Scotland. It put Uganda there, as a country. Of course, it was also still about Amin, but it was a very good film that was received, and many people now knew about Uganda from that angle. And then The Queen of Katwe was also a good production. So if we can think around, if we can't afford to have a unifying cultural attire or language, but we can think about other things like music, theater, dance, etc.
Okay. Stella ATAL in Paris, have you exported the Malakwang and the Bo to France? Because Lucille needs to return to France to visit the family and eat Malakwang in France. Then we will know that cheese and Malakwang and, all our ways of dressing are now known in France. But that aside, Stella, what value do you think this, international exchanges and collaborations create and contribute to the artistic industry and to the creative industry, from across the spectrum?
I think, being a creative, all people express their feelings and their desires through what they do. And if I'm painting, if I'm a Ugandan, normally all my paintings are going to be inspired by maybe the Ugandan culture. If I'm singing contemporary music, it's going to be like all my music is inspired by what I see in my country. I want to represent certain groups of people, different cultures. And if I'm maybe like a drama, I'm going to use the local instruments. But then there is more to that. If you go to international like festivals, really the language is one of the big keys to cultural exchanges. But then as a creative, me, I believe you don't need to know the language to be in a certain country. You can go as you are with your content, with your creativity. You're going to go and perform on stage in your language, and people are going to appreciate. It is just the technique you put in what you're doing that makes you unique. And then people would like to know, how are you doing it? If you're playing the dungu, how are you playing it? In Europe, they have guitars, but then we have the local guitars. And then the sound that comes out of it, it helps you like connect your culture, not connect, like promote what you have in Uganda through the instruments to the rest of the world. You don't need to know the language to play an instrument. You don't need to know the language to put your art piece on the wall. But people who come to see the artwork speaks for itself. You look at the artwork and you tell the story yourself. You find a story that you find in that painting. Normally, artists don't tell stories behind their painting. It's upon the viewer. So there are many things we can do. Much as Faisal was talking about, yes, in Uganda, it's unfortunate that we don't have a unified like language or outfit or food. But then there are so many other ways we can use to promote our culture, like in these countries. Unfortunately, even with food, we have matoke in UK, but here we don't have anything Ugandan. Like Lucille said, it's a very small community and there is nothing that unites us. Actually, I may spend like even like 2 months without meeting a Ugandan on the street because we don't have that culture of uniting. We don't have that culture. Let's maybe sit once a month and share our food, invite the French people, cook for them our local food, and so they can appreciate. Before someone leaves France to come to like Uganda, I would love to teach them a few words, maybe like in English, in Luganda, cook for the food, show them what we have before they get plain. But then, unfortunately, they just read on the internet, and the rest is a surprise when they land in Entebbe.
Lucille, do you want to add something? Thank you, Stella. Do you want to add something on what Stella just said?
Yes, I understand totally that it may be complicated when you live abroad, not to feel like the gathering of your community. But I think there are many ways to connect to your own culture. I think there are many ways to unify the culture, I think. And so, for example, for me, I live in Uganda now. I've been living here for 7 months. And actually, I see many connections between the people. I think it's really a warm country. So indeed, not all the country speaks Luganda, but still I think there are many more ways to connect to people than just the language. Because for example, in France, indeed we speak French, but we are trying now to make a revival of the local languages. And it's complicated because we lose that way more time before.
Yeah.
So I think it's a long work to make people speak the language, again. Yeah. And you have this chance in Uganda to speak many languages. I think it's really you're really rich of your cultures, because not so many people throughout the world speak so many languages, have so many cultures within. It's a small country, So you have this chance, and I think you have to keep it.
Wow. Well, I mean, you've heard from Lucille, Faisal, and I think that the world described Uganda as one of the most culturally diverse countries in the world. We speak over 54 different dialects. Imagine if the creative people here just come together and creatively package this to sell to the world. We could easily go to France and help the French people to learn from us. As Lucille said, we are trying to come at this. But we need to take advantage of this, and I want to hear your thoughts right there. You've heard from Lucille and from Faisal and from Stella. We're going to take another coffee break to allow you grab a cup of coffee so that you can enjoy the creative industry talk from either the comfort of your office or from working, you know, your 42 days locked down at home as it is out of Kampala to the rest of the world. From whichever part, please have a cup of coffee. The Creative Industry Talk will be returning in just a moment, and we will have 2 more questions to discuss before we call it off. So stay right there. I'll be right back after the break. Edio Killer, Lucille Fontaine, Faisal KIWEWA, and Stella ATAL in Paris.
It's a CEO bench, so usually people want to assume that all CEOs are over-learned and stuff like that. So
it is a Creative Industry Talk. My name is Edio Killer, and welcome to the program. In the studio is Lucille Fontaine, who is the cultural attaché and of course in charge of education, languages, and the focal point for you to do exchange at the Embassy of France in Kampala. Right?
With partners, that's the first thing. I think it's really important to have like many stakeholders to help you, you know, because here it's a small embassy, so we have to get contacts to help us with that. So we have Campus France, Stella talked about it. It's the French operator in charge of the studies in France. They are located within KIWEWA and within the Alliance Française. And my colleague, Mercy, she's in charge of that, receiving people, giving them advice about their studies, helping them to find scholarships to help them to go and study in France. And then we have the French Institute, which is located in Paris and throughout the world. And they send us call for projects, call for application. They help us with the foundings. And so thanks to that, we can help the artists in Uganda to receive funds and to build projects to go to France. And then we have other projects that are financed by the French government and the French Ministry of Foreign Affairs. So, for example, we have this new project which is called a FSPI, and the purpose of this project is to have the partners in the country to receive funds and to build innovative projects, to try new things. Because I think the purpose is more to try new things than helping for long-time partners, you know. Our ambassador says usually that we don't want to fish for people, we want them, you know, we want to fish with them and to help them to get food, you know. That's the point. So I think, like with the cultural project, the purpose is to work with people and to try to work with them, not for them, for the cultural field. And so, as I said, we work with the National Theatre, the National Museum, Alliance Française, Nige Nige, and the Ministry of Gender. And thanks to this project, we want to understand better how the cultural ecosystem works in Uganda. And to work better together. That's the point. I mean, we want to work together.
Okay. So if I'm an individual, Lucille, before I go to Faisal, if I'm an individual called Edio Killer and the Lango cultural activities, how do I work with the French embassy?
So there are many initiatives actually. For example, Alliance Française, they have an open mic session, they have platforms every month where they receive the new Ugandan creation. So on the pages, on the social network, you can find all the call for applications. And it's the same with the French Embassy. We have our website, we have Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, when we spread a call for applications and projects. So there, all the people who are artists and have some project can find all the information about what we do. And yeah, we can meet us, I mean, not now because of the curfew, because of it's the end of the event for June and July, but soon, I guess we will be able to meet at the ambassador's residence in all the places, the cultural places in Kampala.
Okay. Faisal, you've heard what Lucille have just said, and on that question of what are some of the initiatives, she has highlighted a number of them, asked her about the impact. Lucille, you haven't yet touched the impact, but I will dive to Faisal and then we'll come back to you and Stella. Yes, Faisal. Baimba, are you taking advantage of this? Have you taken advantage of this? And what impact has it been to you?
Impact. Of course, we've worked with the French for a long time, since 2008. As I said earlier, not only with the embassy, but also directly with artists from France. We've worked with some of the greatest, artists from Paris, from Marseille. We've been partnering with Baba Med in Marseille. It's a market like Doa Doa. We've been trying to do something with Midem as well for East Africa. But also we've worked with Institut Français. Actually, they have been supporting Doa Doa for, I think, 4 years in the past. So we used to receive funding from IF to support our regional, which was actually the first time, because IF has been very much French, Francophonie dominated or focused. So they were always supporting projects in West Africa till I met with my friend Valerie. And I told her, what about in the Anglophone Africa? So we were the first organization to receive money from IF in that perspective. So we've really had great collaborations. We've had, and there are also so many possibilities. I think some of our artists in Uganda have benefited from the RF Awards. Maurice Kiya toured 36 countries when he won his RF. Joel Sebunjo has recorded an album supported by the French government. Sandra Subi's new album, Kadugala, was in collaboration with the French Alliance and recorded in Paris, and she's still now on tour. I think Catherine Nakawesa, she's doing a dance collaboration film for the, I don't know which collaboration, but it's also based in Paris. I think there's another program which is like RFI for contemporary dancers. So there are so many opportunities for Ugandans that have benefited from the French. I think some of them are not known. One of the reasons is because we don't understand the language. Most of it is presented in French. So, and when something is French, so people don't really pay attention to it, except those who are part of the network at Alliance. So that's where many people don't get to know about it. But also because of the language barrier, France has also not been putting so much emphasis on the Anglophone creative projects like it is in West Africa. There has been a lot of development. Most of the, actually, I really think the entire cultural sector in West Africa is run by France. Most of the biggest concert halls, the Alliance Institut Français, the festivals are organized by IF, and so it's really there's been a huge emphasis. And even when it comes to film, and it was also another challenge that went to that got caught into the SCP culture when we realized that actually countries like Senegal or Mali are receiving more money to do film than anywhere else in East Africa or in the Anglophone Africa. So, but that has changed. They have diversified that now. You can now, every region has its own budget, which is really good. So the opportunities have been there. We've explored it, and we've also been recently working with AfriCreative, which is an AFD-funded project. I think it was the first time for them to invest in creative industries because it's not really their area. They focus on big projects. So they have been really trying to explore how they can also support the creative arts, and it's an ongoing program. So yeah, the opportunities have been there, and I'm very happy that they have been open for our industry to use, to explore, and benefit from. Yeah.
Well, thank you very much, Faisal. Stella ATAL in Paris. We want to hear from you. You're already teaching there. Are you teaching Luganda? Are you teaching Luo? What are you teaching the French children besides the the fashion exported out of Uganda, creativity from Uganda? What has been the impact of these collaborations to you, and how can Ugandan creatives continue to be part of it, as Lucille has said, if we can pick a leaf from you? Stella?
Actually, I teach art and I teach fashion, but then Africa inspired. And I don't have like age group. I teach from the children of 6 years up to the university level. It depends on the project you present, and then they say, okay, we want you to do this in this school. And it depends on the community actually, because for the young ones, I work with the mayors. Those are like municipals, mayors. I work with the mayors because they want programs, international programs for the children, for the young children, to grow up learning about different cultures that are different from their own. And then for the big children in high schools, that's when I do real fashion and art. And the aim of this is to introduce the African system into their education system, to share the experience I have with them, and then also to learn with them. Because for me, when I learn from them, it helps me when I get back home, I can transfer that knowledge to the young generation, to the designers who are not able to make it to Paris. And we've had some successful like collaborations, like I told you before, where we bring in students from France to Uganda and then Uganda to France. It's not been so easy, like for me to do that, because first of all, these children you work with, they're not adults. Some of them have just got like 18. And for you to bring children from France to Uganda, they must be above 18. If they are not, then even if they're above 18, because of the security reasons, I cannot stand as me and say I'm going to take a group of people. Even the French embassy, much as they are part of it, if there is no like a communication between the two countries, even the French people have to work with the Ugandan government, the Ugandan embassy, to know that we are bringing your children to France, we are bringing these children to Uganda. But then it's been a one-sided effort, I may say, that the French embassy end up doing everything. And sometimes it's not really easy. Like if you get individuals who want to come to France and they have to apply through the embassy to get the visas, even if they already have the opportunities here, still the embassy is going to ask for recommendation, someone to recommend them who knows them, or like a Ministry of Culture, which we don't have in Uganda. Then they have to look for a person like Faisal. Faisal is going to be in Lunkulu. and there is no other person who can second them. So it's a big challenge that we have so many creatives, and there are so many opportunities, like Lucille said, like Faisal said. But then for Faisal's group of artists, these look for the opportunities themselves, and they are already known. They look for the connections, so they wouldn't need all this information or recommendation. But then for the unknown ones, who are the majority, we still lack this, and I don't know what we are going to do about it, because we are missing out on many opportunities.
Thank you very much, Stella, and for that, I am happy that Lucille, you are in the studio today, and we hope that we will have you back here to answer some of the tough questions that are going to come. I want to open up the line briefly before we go into our last part of the show, and I want to read a comment coming from one Kasirie Adam Kat says, as an upcoming talent manager, I learned a lot from this show. Thank you, guys. I think that's the comment. Thank you very much. I think today most people are learning from you. And I have another person here says, Edio Killer, I'm watching the show all the way from Sweden. I'm a Ugandan creative based in Sweden. Yes, I think the French people do quite a lot. We don't quite reciprocate in the same measure as they give to us. I wish we could take the advantage and do the same. I've had the story about Uganda not being able to be more prominent in France, like France is in most of the African countries, because the African countries don't take advantage of the opportunity available for them. Interesting. And then this one says, to me, say Jackson Connolly says, whoa, I like the show. Thanks, guys. Well, I guess these are young creatives who have landed onto the show. Kasiria Adam has said that from my observation, I think our problem is solidarity. We have failed to come together and work on things that unifies us and focused more on what divides us. We don't come together. We just need willingness to do that. Then the rest will be history, just like the French decided to do. Even the Africans need to do the same. Well, thank you very much, Kasiria Adam. These are young creatives on the show. I want to pause straight to another message that has come from the US. It says, Edio Killer, my name is Moses, based in the UK. I love the show. The creative industry talk is very good for us. I wish we could have more of this and take advantage of this going forward. And thank you very much. I see so many messages coming. I won't read all of them because of the time, but we will be able to respond to you along the way. Lucille, welcome back to the show. I want to take you straight to the last question. Faisal, in fact, let me start with you this time round. What strategies can the government of Uganda develop to market its rich cultural heritage as a tool for international collaboration, as you've heard already from Lucille, that they are and they are doing, and she's going to respond from that context. Yes.
I mean, as I always tell you, I'm not here. I don't really like to talk for government.
Yes.
And I don't want to play this kind of game of like, oh, government should do this, government should do that. I think we are part of the government, even though we don't hold positions of leadership, but we are the government, and we have to first ask ourselves, what are we doing to take Uganda where it's supposed to go? Yeah. And I think if we start from there as a people, we will definitely go there, as Adam was saying. For me, before I start asking what the government has done for me, I have to first do my part, and I am doing my part. And the way I'm doing my part is to see that I have a vision, and which vision that I try to share with everyone else, to see that we can see ourselves fitting into this vision. And then from that, as individuals, we can start having our own contribution to the bigger vision. We might not have the bigger vision as a country that government needs to lead us. And when we talk about theories of change, where does the creative industry, government want the creative industries to go? We don't have that overall vision from government, but we are making already contributions. And I think where the French are, they started somewhere, and I don't think now the policies that they work with are just new. They have been embedded into their culture. They are normal to them. Go out there, you have to eat cheese, you have to drink wine, you have to speak French. It's not even told. They don't tell you that. But we are still here talking about What can I do as a Ugandan when I go out? What can I take? So we're still asking ourselves questions. So we still have a long way to go. But whereas that way is being paved, we have to make our own contributions. And then we can start looking at, I think when the government sees that there are more Ugandans who are really focused on doing things for the sake of doing them, they will start realizing that they can also add their contribution to it so that it's much more stronger and bigger.
Okay. Faisal, on that note, what are the opportunities and threats that you see?
Opportunities are many. I mean, it starts with life, of course. Amor is looking at how do we keep people safe, making sure that they are healthy. Education is important when it comes to the creative development of our people, starting with young people. One of the biggest challenge or threat I see that we are losing a generation of creatives because we don't have a developmental structure that can bring them to be more thoughtful and insightful and creative, because we don't teach them to become thinkers at the beginning. And even when they grow, when you look at the vocational schools, when you look at the creative hubs, when you look at the incubators, they are all disconnected. There is no pattern, there is no strategy, there is no structure. So we need to rethink, and that's what I've always thought, that we need to first, actually, we should have used this COVID period as as an advantage to first pause everything and rethink our way of working. How do we want things to work? Not only for the creatives, but also other industries. So if we could see that the opportunities we have, we are culturally diverse, rich, we have a generation of young people who can do much more, and we have a room to restart from scratch, which is possible because we've not gone anywhere. We can start from scratch and see what others have done. How can we adapt? What are the context or analysis that we can put into that and see where do we need our people to go? But it comes with a lot more than just individuals. It comes with a huge contribution from the political wing. It comes with a huge contribution from the finances, and looking at people as people. Because there is no reason of making things, you can't think for a country when you can't see people. And I think the gap here is most of the people in leadership don't see people. They see themselves, they don't see others. And I think if we can start looking at ourselves, other people, all together, and then we will start worrying and considering and concerned about others so that we can grow all together.
Wow, Faisal, you said that if we could pause in the lockdown, well, we have 42 days, we just need 2 days of it. So maybe this is a good point. Stella ATAL, you've heard what Faisal said on that question, and I would want to come back to Lucille on that point. Stella, what strategies can government of Uganda, your very own government, our very own government, should take to develop, to market the richest culture we have on planet Earth, as the world says, and our heritage as a tool of international collaboration? What should we do? How should we go about the fact that you're based in France, the fact that you interact with many of these people, not just from the French territories, but also from our own government in our own foreign offices all across the world? What advantage do we have? And of course, I want you to close it there with what are the opportunities and threats that we have. Stella, over to you.
I think, like Faisal said, the opportunities we have, there is a lot that we can export. There is a lot that we can take to the world. But then back to my country, still, if we don't appreciate who we are and don't appreciate what we have, then there is nothing we are going to export. Because Faisal just said, everything is dying home. The way children are being taught, the vocational centers where they're teaching, there is nothing connected to, there is a point where, culture is integrated, but then we've lost a lot from the years. And I think before we look at the government to help us, let us gather ourselves. Let us take a break, like Faisal said, rethink of what we can do. Because there is information. During COVID, you may not have to travel. You may not be able to travel. Go on internet. Go to YouTube. See what other people are doing. If you're interested in music, don't wait until you're going to get an opportunity to come to Paris and do maybe a collab or a recording. First look and see what you can do to improve what you're doing back home, and then see how your creativity, how your talent can benefit, change other people's lives in the community. You don't need to be a teacher, you don't need to be a graduate to go and teach. You can teach what you know, and it's a talent. So, a talent, when you go to school with a talent, you get the knowledge. But then, talent is inborn and it's something you can pass on to the generations and generations. And when you look at all the old people who used to tell us stories, the history about the countries, these people didn't go to school. But then they've been there when everything is happening and they had the interest. So they tell a story like you would learn in school. So let's embrace who we are, what we have, and then when the government will see that yes, Stella is doing this, Baimba is doing this, Eddie is doing this, then they see like, okay, Lucille has come into the country and is working with these people. What is so special about these people Lucille is working with? How can we help out? That is the only way we are going to pull the government to come and be part of us.
Lucille, I dive back to you here in Kampala. You've had Faisal, you've had what is coming from Stella. Now, we want to ask you from the point of a person already doing it. 6 months, you said 7 months in Kampala. What has been your journey since you arrived in Kampala? What have you seen? What opportunities have you seen for us? What are our threats? And how can you, where you sit, advise your colleagues in our government on how we can market and take the opportunity to also do the same thing in France, given the fact that it says a little is known about Uganda in France and our culture, and yet when you come out here, you find a very huge opportunity, you know, walking with their heads and legs and hands in the streets of Kampala, and you said, I love this, yet is not as diverse as what you have in France. What lessons can we pick from there? How would you advise the government of Uganda from a diplomatic point of view as an attaché in our, you know, French embassy in Kampala?
Yes, well, I think I would say that I've been really impressed by what I've seen so far. I mean, there are so many people, so many creative people. They do so much with not so much money, not so much training, not so much time, because most of the young people I've seen have like 3 works, and I'm really impressed about that. Like how many people have such a good will, and yeah, so much motivation, so many ideas about what they want to do. So for me, it has been really impressive and inspiring to see those young people doing so much good work. Yes, that's the first thing. Impression is really good, and yeah, I'm really impressed.
So I need to clap for Uganda on this one, Faisal. Okay, continue.
I would say that apart from this admiration, I think that many people have, yes, I don't know how they do that. I mean, I think they really connect between the cultural inspiration and then the digital tools, for example. Like you can see, there is not that many tools, digital tools here, but still there are so many like applications, you know, even like Jumia. It's impressive to see how people manage to find new tools that we don't have in France actually, to find new ways of living. So this is really something interesting.
That's clap number 4, guys. I need to clap for this, Faisal.
Yeah, you should. You should be proud.
Yes,
you should be proud of being
that
here.
Particularly, we don't have this tool in France, and it is here. That's a huge.
Yeah, that's what I always say. That you know, Uganda, if someone is serious, we are more like a laboratory.
Yeah.
You know, we are testing things, and some things work, some things don't work. Of course, some things take time, but we have an opportunity to invent, to innovate, to come up with really serious products that could be competitive with the rest of the world. And I think that level of leveling with the rest of the world to see that even if we don't have much, we, as Lucille says, we don't have much, but what can we do? What are the small things that we can, champion and leverage and take it and share them with the rest of the world? Yeah.
Wow, Lucille, please continue. We were on point number 2.
Yes, because I think that the main point is to understand that it's not about having less or more than other countries, which are supposed to be to have more success. The point is to know who you are, what you have, and then what you can do with what you have. This is why I was talking about the knowledge you have about your own culture and your own possibilities. I think the opportunities are everywhere. You just have to find a good way to take them and to do your own stuff with that.
Okay. What are some of the threats that you have seen so far with us?
Maybe it's about homogeneity, because like there are so many young people, and when you're young, you want to do as the other ones, right? You want to be like in the mainstream culture because it looks so good. So maybe it could be a threat, not finding your own way of being yourself, but rather try to do like the other do. I think that's the problem, maybe the threat. So I think I would say that young people have to find their own way of being themselves, their own way of living their culture, finding their identity, and then finding their own models. It's not just about being American, eating burgers, having the same. I mean, fashion here, Stella, I can talk about that. It's so interesting. Music is really diverse. Everything is really interesting. Like even the country, the landscape type so different. So we have to find our own ways of being ourselves, of being different, and that's the best opportunity we can find as an individual, I think.
Okay. Lucille, I just want to ask you this last question as we wind up. From a diplomatic point of view, you've talked about as the creative, the wananchi, what we call the local people here, the people who don't make, but you sit where certain decisions are made at certain level politically. And what would be your best advice to your colleagues from the government side of things? What opportunity do you see for them, and what threats do you see for them? And if you're to advise them right now as an attaché, culturally attached to the French embassy in Kampala, coordinating educations and language and, making opportunities happen for people all across, particularly in Uganda to France, and bringing France to Uganda, what would be your best advice, or, small token of appreciation, or words or advice or threats you see to the government of Uganda from the diplomatic point of view?
I would say my best advice would be to work with us, and really like to consider that it's not just about receiving things, but rather to start to work together and to have this collaboration I was talking about before. So I think we have to think beyond the function of the people. So it's not about being a diplomat or being an artist, or to think about this function, because the thing is more to think about what you want to do and not who you want to be, Like saying, I want to be an artist, this is not the clue of a good work, I think. The clue is more about what you want to do and how you want to work with people, how you want to help your country to become a better country, or how you can help your family to become more unified, these kind of things. So yeah, I think what we have to do also as an embassy is to look for people who can be hidden, because there are so many people in Kampala, for example, sometimes it's complicated to find the new talents. So thanks to your show, for example, and thanks of these initiatives, I think we have better clues to find people. And we have to understand better the local context. We have to look for things that are not obvious. Because sometimes, you just go on TV, you look for new talents, but actually they are not new. It's quite easy to see them. And I think it's really interesting to find new ways of finding new cultures that can be hidden and not that much valued in Uganda.
Wow. And as your last word, if you're to go back and advise the Ugandan embassy in France, what would you say to them? Having learned from here, what would you say to them?
I think I would say the same actually, because I think collaboration is also reciprocal, you know. So I would say don't look for wine, look for all kind of beverages, and it's the same. Like don't try to find like local stuff, you know. Like even in France, actually, it's not just about like this unified culture. Of course, we have just one language, main language, but there are many ways of being French. And this is the same in France. There are many different people, many different individualities. So we always have to find the hidden things apart from the mainstream culture.
Wow. Stella ATAL in France, what would be your last word and the last take today as we come to the evening of the Creative Industry Talk today?
My last word would be to all the creatives that don't feel shy about what you're doing, because maybe because of the language or because you're not educated. What you do, if you're good at what you're doing, you can take it on the global market and you'll be appreciated no matter the other conditions. So be proud of who you are, do your things right, and try to engage more into cultural exchanges. And that is going to help you open your mind to the world and understand that what I'm doing, I can take it to America and they like it, in Uganda, in Luo, I can take it to France and they like it. And that is going to make you confident, because you're going to know about other cultures, how people are confident about their cultures, and it will help you grow.
Thank you very much, Stella. And I now dive to you, Faisal, here as we wind up. Yeah. Last take home today.
No, I think international collaboration and exchange has always been one of the ways that cultures and people get exposed to new things. It's not only about the creatives, but also in politics, in security, military exchanges. So many things have been really, championed and enhanced because of these interactions around the world. So for us in the arts, we are very grateful that we've happened to experience this, and I'm always looking forward to collaborations, and I'm looking forward for more bigger collaborations to come in the future. So I'm excited, and I'm really convinced that we will get there one day, hopefully maybe before we die. But it's good, and I'm looking forward to the new things that are coming up. Yeah.
Well, thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, and of course, thank you very much, Lucille, for coming. Yeah, this is how we do it. So we need to teach you how we do this thing. So you do this and you spread the love. Yes, yes, and you spread the love. And to Faisal, thank you very much. To Stella ATAL, thank you very much for coming to the program today. We hope that we'll be able to have you back on the show next week to discuss a little bit more how we can continue with this collaboration going forward. We want to delve deep into this and see how best we can maximize on the opportunities we have in these 42 days of lockdown before it becomes 80 days of lockdown, so that it becomes much better. And to all of you guys, thank you very much for being a part of the show, and of course for being a part of the Creative Industry Talk growing bigger and better. Every big thing in the world started from a small pond somewhere in the backyard of an individual digging the hole or thinking about it, and it became a big thing. The Wright brothers started by working on the bicycles to try and make sure it runs, and before we know it, we have planes running. And of course, the Henry Ford started from nowhere, and before we have it, who knows? Faisal KIWEWA might start from here, and before you know it, Lunkulu is flying.
I'm already somewhere.
And of course, Lucille, thank you very much for coming to the show. And to all of you guys all across the world, we want to say thank you so much for being part of the Creative Industry Talk going bigger and better. And until next week, my name is Edio Kela, Faisal KIWEWA, Lucille Fontaine, right here from the French Embassy in Kampala, and Stella ATAL all the way in Paris. We say goodbye, stay safe, and stay focused, stay creating in your lockdown situation. Until next week, God bless.